On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
What's in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, I'm back from hospital and we're going to be talking about fairies and the other wee folk.
I really like the old credits.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is John Downs and I'm the Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. Every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 for about twice that, we bring you an assembly of hard science, weird shit and surreality. What's surreality? Well, I think you're going to have to ask Ray.
So, Rossiter, what's been shaking down at the old Youth Outreach Centre in Brixton then?
Oh, Barry, I have been introducing the kids to things that are not altogether moles, or crows, or ants, or buzzards, or decomposed human beings, but something that I cannot and must not recall.
And here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of On the Track. I have spent the last week in hospital in Taunton, having, amongst other things, my big toe on my right foot removed. I have gory photographs that I could show you, but my producer Louis is such a, shall I say, squeamish young man, he probably wouldn't let me show pictures. Louis, would you let me show pictures of my stump to the boys and girls? Do you think they need to see it?
John, young people don't need pictures. We're going to start a new society where we discriminate upon people based on the size of their nipples relative to different British coins.
And what's that got to do with people with only one big toe?
Well, you'd clearly be at the very bottom of the nipple class hierarchy.
So do you want me to show the boys and girls my nipples so we can see how big they are compared to your hierarchy?
I'm certain that the people at YouTube would not appreciate that.
Oh well, what you don't know is I've already shown a piece of footage earlier in the show taken by Graham of me without wearing a shirt lying in a hospital bed introducing the show, and I expect you can probably see my nipples on there.
Well, there goes monetization.
Regular viewers of the show will know that for the last 2 weeks we have featured an interview that Richard and I made with the Bigfoot researcher M.K. Davis about his theory that the Patterson Bigfoot footage of 1967 actually shows the aftermath of a massacre of Sasquatch by people from the logging industry. And I have never had so many pro and con emails and messages about a show before. It's very interesting to see how strongly people feel about Mr. Davis's research. I have had several emails telling me that I really mustn't feature the research of this man because he's a charlatan and a liar and only trying to make money. Well, I'm not quite sure how he's only trying to make money, because I haven't seen any evidence that he's done anything but feature his research within the Bigfoot community. And I've also had emails telling me how brave I was to feature such a controversial guest. Well, thank you very much for thinking I'm brave, but I don't think I was being brave at all. I was just doing what the CFZ website and what the CFZ and what this show should be doing, which is featuring the research of people who present a cogent and well-reasoned argument, whether or not I agree with what they say. Now, before I go any further, I'm not going to say here that I agree or disagree with M.K. Davis. I found his presentation fascinating, very cogent and eminently believable, and it ties in with what I know about the Bigfoot community, about Bigfoot research, and about the behaviour of both the American government and big business, and logging is big business. But I don't know if it's true or not. It's not my place to decide what is true. I'm just going to carry on collecting evidence and presenting it in this show, and we'll wait and see what happens at the end. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for coming on the show. I would like to have you on the show again sometime relatively soon, and I'd like you to take questions from the show's viewership. So if you've got questions to ask Mr. Davis that are polite and well-reasoned, whether or not you believe in his evidence, please send them in to me, and when we do this question and answer show, we'll be sure to feature you in it. And now for something far more pleasant. The other day we had a visit from somebody who I have known online for something like 14 years, but I've never actually met. A charming Australian man currently living in Austin, Texas, Thom Woodruff, better known to the whole world as Thom the World Poet.
Yeah. I come and the news is good. I come to share the news with you, and everybody is privy to the sacred moment of our alchemy. It begins in Langdoon, in Paddington, with the magic forest which actually began as 70 acres in Pembrokeshire, a space where the Department of Forestry had chopped down all the trees. And Alan said, we must begin to replant. So they bought at a low price 70 acres of destroyed woodland, and now there are thousands of deciduous fruit trees, all types of trees, multi-species blooming in Pembrokeshire, in wild, wet and windy Wales. I go deep south to the deep green of Cornwall, and in the heart of Cornwall I find the heart of hearts, music. He introduces me to a festival that's alive and well, and I'm introduced to these gypsy travellers and tribal people who live the future as if it were now. While we perambulate through all the beautiful roses and vines and green of gardens wild. And then we find places and spaces where poetry is welcomed, little open mics and open hearts and minds. He introduces me to his friend Cedar, and she was a teacher, of course, but the system is cages and laws, so she had to leave when they said to her, for her daughter, we don't expect anything from her. So she said, I do, and I'm taking her from you, and she shall be free as the wind. She made the circle of young sentients, and they all gather, and they learn by play, which is the only way consciousness can continue these days. So I stayed with them, witnessed with them, and enjoyed that day. And then down to Penzance, in the yacht club. It's not a club, it's a bar, it's a pub. But we looked out over the waves. The waves were, of course, continuing their battle against the rocks. And the rocks are always losing, but the land is always losing. Because the waves are insistent, and they stay. Poetry had a plague home there, and it was sweet. And then open mics, open hearts, open minds, everywhere you meet. For Cornwall is deeply embedded in the gardens of the future. We went to a little farm right next to an Air Force base, where I said, oh, homeopathy, that's right, you have the poison and the antidote. You have the Air Force flying over and you have gardens going greener, higher, wilder. They don't need to rewild Cornwall, it already is. But this addiction to freeways must end. Cornwall is green, deep green, and it will live forever. So long as the dull, grey crust of the cost of freeways steals our freedom and says we'll help you with mobility, but of course nothing moves in Gridlock City. So there we were. And wanting more takes me to the Royal Cornwall Show. His band, 3 piece, all magic, a fourth who had to work for the day. There's the violin man with 2 hips, need replacing, but NHS puts him on the list forever. There's a player of bodhrán, and she has had cancer, but she continues smiling. And they're all dancing around the stage, and Chris takes the stage and makes it a playground for the children in front of the occasional drunk who comes up on stage. The pint of Cornish cider in his hand. I've got a Cornish pasty in my stomach, and I realise how wonderful Cornwall really is. It's not the Cornish ice cream, it's not the Cornish beer, it's there's something about the Cornwall people. Small, adaptable, hard-working, industrious, and they have nothing much, and history has taken it from them, but they continue spinning like dervishes dancing. And of course we were taken to a green field, where this magic woman had a fireplace, and there were folk travellers and gypsies playing, and we did poetry and music, and they did stick dancing, Morris dancing, whoever Morris may be. And it was sweet in that field, because out there was sculptures and art in the grass, and there were flags flying, and there was a feeling that the temporary republic of the future starts here and starts now. And it was so nice to be among people in whom conversation was the lingua franca, the Esperanto of the soul. So after that, of course, we thought, well, what else can we possibly do? Let's go to our friends and thank them too. So Glastonbury, home of the Chalice Well, we bring the water to you directly from the well itself, the free tap on the outside, because it was Monday. And you can't go inside the other one on a Monday. They're cleaning it out and you can't take photographs. So outside we just fill our little plastic bottles full of the holy water to take to people who don't know what laughter is until they hear it giggling in the waters of life itself. And down by the spring there is a poet who's got poetry for sale. So I go up to him and I say, here, have a book of poetry and sell it if you can. Good luck to you, man. And he's puzzled, of course, because poetry and money, he thinks he has to do that because he wants food and shelter. And I say, look, everything is waiting for you. It's just got your name upon it. Can you find your hidden name? And he laughs. He doesn't understand, but it's all right. We fill up with drink again. And then down the corner to the street, where Johnny and Sue are waiting, in a garden, an old house I used to visit when the bands came through, when Gong, Mother Gong, Invisible Opera Company of Tibet, and Kangaroo Moon, all the legends of our lifetime who are unknown to most, happily, but they are all, we used to do self-initiation workshops in that house, in that space, where we learn to rebirth and we learn to contact our inner selves and listen to the world as it was, whether represented by air, water, or any of the other elements. And now they've built a garden, green and beautiful, and they have ways of stopping the snails from chewing on their little plants. And they have ways of making tomatoes grow, and great green leaves like Findhorn did, I suppose. But these legends are real and now, like today. So where else could we come but to you to play? Thank you for living, John. You make life better this way.
Oh, my dear sweet Tom, you darling, darling man.
It's lovely.
You dear sweet man. And I think if there's any doubt, not that there probably was any, that I'm basically an old hippie with a weird attitude, I think the inclusion of that poem from my dear sweet friend Tom Woodruff just probably proves it. Now I want to go over to another friend, somebody again who I've not met in the flesh, but I hope to one day, and who is an old friend of this show and was on the show a few weeks ago. But now she's back. She was talking the first time she was on, she was talking about women in Fortean research. Now she's talking about the little people. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Allison Jornlin.
Well, I had just in the beginning of the month, a book came out called Fairy Films, We Folk on the Big Screen, and it's edited by Joshua Cutchin, and I have an essay in here, which I'm really proud of. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it, but what was that?
I haven't yet, no.
Yeah, so that's something that, maybe I could come back another time and talk about, because my essay is called Scary Fairies, the Boogeymen of Yore. And so I talk about some of those good neighbors, which some of those good neighbors may not be so good all the time. And so I talk about how that's been portrayed in film, but also how it's played out in real life, and some of the actual cases of mysterious illness and death that have been recorded, and many of them in contemporary times. So check out the book.
I most certainly will, and
yeah.
I'll put links to it in the show notes. So
that would be spectacular. And then if you're interested in any of the cases in there, then we can record another show about that if you'd like.
Well, there is a lady who is part of the CFZ management team called Guinevere, and she has been bullying me for months, saying, when are we going to have fairies for fairy lore on the show? And so the answer is very soon.
Yes, because you're going to love this book then.
I'm
because
sure.
It talks about the prevailing tropes from ancient fairy lore that have found their way into modern Hollywood, and then also international film. And but not only that, from reading it, you can get an appreciation for the beliefs in the fairies. And as in with my essay, you might contemplate some things about these other intelligences that you wouldn't have thought about before, and you might find out some things about actual cases of interactions with these other intelligences. And it's just a fascinating field. And I know anytime people hear that you're away with the fairies, so to speak, if you're interested in fairies, they tend to take out a rubber stamp with bonkers on it and stamp you with that. But I have to say, there are strange things that have been documented, and I've found some of them even in my own community of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that I'm surprised about, that are unsolved mysteries that we need to take another look at, because they really are unexplained. So I'd love to talk to you about that at another time.
Of course, it'd be lovely to have you on again. When I was a boy, about 50-something years ago, we first came to live in the house where I live now, in a little village no one's ever heard of, in the back of Beyond in North Devon. And there were at least 2 old ladies who would always leave out a bowl of milk for the fairies on a Saturday night. always Saturday night, so the fairies would have some milk to drink and not to go to do any mischief on the Sabbath. And they were totally serious about it. Whether the fairies took the milk or whether it was taken by hedgehogs or stray cats or whatever, I have no idea. But they always did it every Saturday night. So I've seen one.
Oh, okay, Richard, we need to hear more.
Okay, come on, Richard. We're gonna.
I told
Come
you.
on,
I told
Richard.
you about it on the night I saw it.
I need to hear it now.
I'm completely.
He has selective amnesia because maybe they don't want him to know the truth.
Do you want to turn it around a bit more? Hi again.
Hi again.
About the year 2000, I went up onto Dartmoor with 3 other people looking for a big stone circle called Scorrel. It's the biggest stone circle on Dartmoor. Now, Dartmoor is an area of moorland in the southwest of England, in Devon. It's famous for fairy lore and pixies, which are not the cutesy little things you think they are. Pixies are quite grotesque and considered to be dangerous if you cross them. But we were going to look at this megalithic circle, and we'd parked up and we were walking because we'd never been to it before, so we didn't quite know how to get to it. And we were walking to it, and it was twilight, but still you could still see where you were going. It was in October, and it was drizzling, and we were walking across these fields, and we came to a field that had dry stone walls around it, and we entered through a gate, and there were some sheep in the field, and we were looking for the gate at the other side of the field, and it wasn't a particularly large field, but we found ourselves walking round and round and round and round and not being able to find the other gate. And there was a strange feeling, like almost like walking through treacle, a strange heavy feeling, and a sort of feeling of otherworldliness, of being in like a dreamlike state. And I noticed it was getting dark, so I thought, how long have we been wandering around in this field? Then all of a sudden, by the dry stone wall, there appeared a ring of bluey white lights about 5 feet across, made up of it's a ring made up of these small lights, almost like Christmas tree lights. All the lights on a big wheel at a fair. I believe you call them Ferris wheels in America.
Yeah.
And it was about 5 feet across. And I said to the others, look at that. And they all looked at it. All 4 of us saw it. And then it winked out. And we were there scratching our heads, wondering what the hell it was. And the lights came on again. But this time they were in the crude outline of a person. So if you could imagine a human figure picked out in lights, almost like a dot to dot, but with lights. And it reminded me of public toilets where you have the crude image of a man and a woman. And the woman is in a dress and the man is standing there with his arms and legs at his side. It was like that. But the head seemed to be sunken down into the body, so it didn't have much of a neck. And then that winked out, and I realised what was going on then. I realised instantly then it was something to do with pixies or fae, and we were being pixie-led. So I said to everybody, take your coats off, turn them inside out and put them on again, because that is a way of breaking the spell of the fairies. You turn your coat inside out, it's where the term turncoat comes from. Now, that's a really weird thing to ask anybody. Take your coat off, turn it inside out, put it on again, especially when it's raining. Nobody questioned me. They all just did it. And instantaneously, right in front of us was the gate. And we went through the gate and found the stone circle. The weird thing was none of us really spoke about it afterwards.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, asks me to remind you all, always press the notification bell, otherwise you'll never find out when the next show's going to be. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the first show that I recorded without having a big toe on my right foot. That has nothing to do with it, but I thought I should probably mark the occasion. It's been a strange old couple of weeks, but we are just about getting back to normal, and I would like to thank all the people who have helped me with this episode, particularly my guests, Richard Freeman, Allison Jornlin, Thom the World Poet, and also Richard and Karen Heath, Mrs. World Poet, Chris the guitarist and his daughter Eva. And Louis, how could I forget Louis? I also want to say a big thank you to Miss Maxine for doing what she does, for Miss Guinevere for doing what she does, and for Miss Judy, who does what she does even though the poor girl has broken her ankle. Not her ankle, what am I saying? It's her knuckle. Poor girl. I will be back on Wednesday. What am I going to be talking about on Wednesday? I've got absolutely no idea. But I will be back on Wednesday at 6:30, and I'll be back next Saturday at 3:00. I will have with me the lovely Allison Jornlin, concluding our discussion about the fairy folk, and there will be something else. But what that something else will be, you're just going to have to wait and find out. So, are you ready, Mr. McQuillan? Because assuming you are ready, Mr. McQuillan, if you're all going to be there watching the show on Saturday, well, I'm going to be there, so I'm going to be seeing you.